Unwritten Vows. The temple bells echoed through the air, mingling with the sound of evening prayers. Aasha closed her eyes and pressed her palms together, her heart filled with a single prayer that her father would change his mind. "I sent you here to pray, not to daydream." Her mother's voice suddenly cut through her thoughts. Aasha startled, her eyes flying open. She looked up at her mother, Meera Devi, feeling a pang of guilt. "Mother, I was just praying," she said softly. "For what?" "For that boy." There was both concern and anger in Meera's voice. Aasha didn't respond. She knew her mother was aware of the truth. How could she hide the love that was so evident in her eyes? Aasha Kapoor, daughter of one of Delhi's most respected Brahmin families, had recently returned from completing her studies at Delhi University. Her family was not only strict about their caste, but also about their traditions. Yet Aasha's heart had taken her to a place where neither her caste nor traditions could reach. Arjun Sharma was a simple young man who had worked his way through Delhi University. He came from a Dalit family, but his thoughts and dreams soared far above his caste. Aasha and Arjun had met at a social event where both had volunteered. "Aasha, you know what your father and I have dreamed for you," Meera said as they walked out of the temple. "We want you to marry into a good family of our society. Rohit Kapoor is a good match. His family is just like ours." Aasha ignored her mother's words. She had met Rohit Kapoor, an arrogant man who took pride in his caste and wealth. He was worlds apart from Arjun. "Mother, love doesn't see caste," Aasha said quietly. "That only happens in books and movies, daughter. In real life, we live with our traditions." "Your marriage to Rohit has already been decided," Meera said firmly. A storm was brewing in Aasha's heart. She loved her family deeply, but Arjun had also become a part of her heart. She had lied every day to meet him, breaking her family's trust each time. That evening, alone in her room, her phone rang. It was Arjun. "Aasha, I've heard your family wants you to marry someone else." The pain in his voice was palpable. "Yes, Arjun. They won't understand our love," Aasha said, her eyes filling with tears. "Then we'll run away. I can't live without you," Arjun said. Aasha's heart raced. Could she leave her family? Could she abandon her traditions, her roots? "Give me time, Arjun. I'll talk to my father," she finally said. The next day, Aasha gathered the courage to speak with her father, Rajesh Kapoor. She went to his study, where he often sat in the evenings. "Father, may I speak with you?" Aasha asked softly. Rajesh looked up from his book and regarded his daughter. "Yes, beta, speak," he said. Aasha took a deep breath and began. "Father, I'm in love with someone." Rajesh's face hardened slightly, but he said nothing. "His name is Arjun Sharma. He studied with me at Delhi University. He's a very good man, hard-working and—" "What is his caste?" Rajesh interrupted. Aasha's heart nearly stopped. She knew this question would come, but she had hoped to tell her father more about Arjun first. He is from a Dalit family," she said quietly. Rajesh closed his book and shut his eyes, as if trying to control his anger. "Aasha, do you know how old our family lineage is? How important our traditions are?" he finally said, his voice calm but with an underlying tension. "Yes, father, I know. But love. Rajesh said, the anger now evident in his voice. "Do you know what this would mean in our society? Our honor, our respect, all would be reduced to nothing." Aasha remained silent. There was a truth in her father's words that she couldn't ignore. "I educated you so that you would understand your duties, not so you would dream dreams that can never come true," Rajesh said. "Your marriage to Rohit Kapoor has been decided. His family is coming to see you next week." Tears began to flow down Aasha's cheeks. She knew her father's decision was final. Changing his mind was impossible. That night, Aasha called Arjun. Her voice trembled as she told him about her father's decision. "So will you accept their decision?" Arjun asked, disappointment heavy in his voice. I don't know, Arjun. I can't bear to see my family hurt, but the thought of losing you breaks me. Aasha said. We can run away, Aasha. We can go somewhere far, where no one knows us, Arjun said. Aasha took a deep breath. Could she leave her family? Could she leave her mother, her father, her brother? I need time to think, Arjun, she finally said. I'll meet you tomorrow. The next day, Aasha met Arjun at a small cafe far from her home. As soon as she saw him, her heart ached. How could she live without him? Have you decided? Arjun asked, his eyes searching hers. Arjun, Aasha began, her voice breaking. I can't just leave them. They're my family. And what about us? What about our love? Arjun's voice was filled with pain. I'll try one more time. I'll talk to my mother. Maybe she can help me convince father, Aasha said, clinging to a shred of hope. When Aasha returned home, she found her mother in the garden, tending to her roses. The perfect moment, she thought. Mother, Aasha approached cautiously. Can I speak with you? Mira looked up, wiping her hands on her apron. Of course, Beta. Mother, I can't marry Rohit. I love Arjun, Aasha said directly, her heart pounding. Mira sighed deeply. Aasha, you're young. You think love is everything, but there's more to life than just love. There's family, society, tradition. But mother, times are changing. People marry for love now, Aasha pleaded. Not in families like ours, Mira said firmly. Do you know what it would do to your father if you married outside our caste? It would kill him, Aasha. The shame, the talk, the disgrace. He wouldn't be able to show his face in society again. Aasha felt a weight pressing down on her chest. Was her love worth her father's honor? Worth her family's place in society? I don't want to hurt father or you, Aasha whispered, tears streaming down her face. Mira came closer and put her hands on Asha's shoulders. Then do what is right, Beta. Meet Rohit's family. Give them a chance. That night, as Aasha lay in bed, her mind was a battlefield of emotions. She loved Arjun with all her heart, but could she defy her family, her society, for that love? Was she strong enough to face the consequences? In the morning, she called Arjun. Can we meet? And she asked, her voice small. Of course, he replied, and she could hear the hope in his voice. They met at their usual spot, a quiet corner of a park. When Arjun saw her face, he knew. She didn't need to say anything. You're going to marry him, aren't you? He said, his voice hollow. Arjun, Aasha couldn't finish, tears choking her words. You're choosing them over us, Arjun said, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact. I can't break my family, Arjun. I can't bring shame to them, Aasha finally managed to say. Arjun looked at her for a long moment, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and resignation. I understand, Aasha. I always knew this day might come. Aasha couldn't look Arjun in the eyes anymore. The weight of her decision pressed down on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. I should go, she whispered, turning away. Aasha, wait, Arjun called after her, his voice cracking. Just tell me one thing, do you love me? She stopped, her back still to him. You know I do, she replied, her voice barely audible. Then fight for us. Just one more time, he pleaded. Aasha turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. And if I fail? Then at least we'll know we tried everything, Arjun said, taking a step toward her. The next morning, Aasha woke with a renewed determination. She would try one more time, not just with her parents, but with her grandfather, Vikram Kapoor, the patriarch of the family. If anyone could sway her father, it would be him. She found her grandfather in the family temple, performing his morning prayers. She waited patiently until he finished and then approached him. Dadaji, may I speak with you? She asked respectfully. The old man looked at her with kind eyes. Of course, child. What troubles you? Aasha took a deep breath and told him everything. About Arjun, about their love, about her father's refusal. Her grandfather listened silently, his expression unreadable. Dadaji, I love him. And he's a good man, educated, hard-working. Does his caste really matter more than his character? She finished, her heart pounding. Vikram Kapoor was quiet for a long moment. Come with me, he finally said, rising slowly. He led Aasha to his room and opened an old wooden chest. From it, he took out a yellowed photograph. This is Lakshmi, he said, handing the photo to Aasha. It showed a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. I loved her once, many years ago. Aasha looked at her grandfather in surprise. What happened? She was from a lower caste. My father forbade our marriage, he said simply, a hint of old pain in his voice. I married your grandmother instead, as was arranged. Didn't you fight for her? Aasha asked, stunned by this revelation. I did, but in the end, I chose duty over love, he said, taking back the photograph and looking at it wistfully. I've often wondered what my life would have been like with her. Aasha felt a flicker of hope. Then you understand. You'll help me convince father. Her grandfather looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and resignation. Understanding is not the same as approving, child. Times were different then, but some things haven't changed. Our family's standing in society, our traditions, these are not small matters. But Dadaji, let me finish, he said gently. I will speak with your father. I cannot promise anything, but I will try to make him see that times are changing. However, you must also consider if you are prepared for the consequences if you choose this path. It will not be easy. That afternoon, Aasha waited anxiously as her grandfather and father spoke behind closed doors. She could hear their voices rising occasionally, though she couldn't make out the words. Finally, the door opened, and her grandfather emerged, his face grave. He will speak with you, he said to Aasha, then walked away, his shoulders slightly bent. Aasha entered her father's study, her heart racing. Rajesh Kapoor sat at his desk, his face stern. Sit down, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Aasha obeyed, her hands trembling slightly. Your grandfather has spoken on your behalf, he began, his voice controlled. He believes I should at least meet this Arjun. Asha's heart leaped. You will meet him? Yes, her father said reluctantly. But understand this, Aasha. Meeting him doesn't change anything. The decision about your marriage remains mine. Thank you, father, Aasha said, trying to contain her excitement. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The next day, Arjun came to the Kapoor household. He was dressed in his best clothes, his hair neatly combed, his posture straight despite the palpable tension in the air. Aasha watched nervously as her father scrutinized him, asking pointed questions about his family, his education, his future plans. And what do you think gives you the right to love my daughter? Rajesh finally asked, his voice cold. Arjun looked directly at him. With all due respect, he must arise, sir. Love isn't about rights. It simply is. I love Aasha for who she is, not for her name or her caste, and I would spend my life making her happy. A heavy silence fell over the room. Aasha held her breath, watching her father's face for any sign of softening, but his expression remained stony. You may go now, he said to Arjun, then turned to Aasha. We will discuss this later. After Arjun left, Aasha waited for her father's verdict, her heart in her throat. He seems educated. I'll grant him that, Rajesh finally said. But Aasha, you must understand. Our family has a position in society. Centuries of tradition cannot be cast aside for one moment of emotion. It's not just emotion, father. It's love, Aasha pleaded. Love? Her father's voice was bitter. What do you know of love? Real love involves sacrifice, duty, honor. It's not just about feelings. Then let me show you that our love is real, Aasha said desperately. Give us a chance. Rajesh looked at his daughter for a long moment. Rohit's family is coming tomorrow. You will be there and you will be respectful. That is all I have to say. That night, Aasha couldn't sleep. She paced her room, torn between her love for Arjun and her duty to her family. In the early hours of the morning, she made a decision. She would meet Rohit's family, as her father wished, but she would also find a way to be with Arjun. The next day, Rohit's family arrived, filling the Kapoor house with noise and activity. Rohit himself was tall and well-dressed, with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. When he was introduced to Aasha, he barely looked at her, his eyes constantly drifting to his phone. "She's as beautiful as you said," his mother commented to Mira, inspecting Aasha like she was appraising a piece of jewelry. The two families sat together discussing the potential match as if Aasha wasn't even present. They talked about dowry, about the wedding arrangements, about the future of the two families joined by marriage. Aasha sat silently, her mind elsewhere. Later, when Rohit and Aasha were left alone for a few minutes, carefully chaperoned from a distance, he finally spoke directly to her. "My parents think this is a good match," he said, his tone businesslike. "What do you think?" Aasha looked at him, trying to see if there was any warmth behind his polished exterior. "Do you believe in love, Rohit?" she asked instead of answering. He laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "Love? That's for movies and novels. Marriage is about compatibility, about building a life together. Love, if it comes later." Aasha felt a chill run through her. This was the man her parents wanted her to spend her life with, a man who didn't believe in love? After Rohit's family left, promising to return with a formal proposal, Aasha sought out her mother. She found her in the kitchen, preparing dinner. "Mother, I can't marry him," Aasha said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "He doesn't even believe in love." Mira sighed, setting down the knife she was using. "Beta, love isn't everything. Rohit is from a good family, he's well-educated, he has prospects. He will provide for you, give you a good life. But what about happiness?" Aasha asked, her voice rising slightly. "Doesn't that matter? Happiness comes from doing your duty, from honoring your family," her mother said firmly. "This infatuation you feel for this Arjun boy, it will pass. What remains is family, tradition, duty." Aasha felt the walls closing in around her. Every avenue she tried led to the same dead end. That night, she called Arjun, her decision made. "Let's run away," she said as soon as he answered. "Tomorrow. We'll go far away, start a new life." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure, Aasha?" Arjun finally asked, his voice serious. "This means leaving everything behind, your family, your home, your life." "I'm sure," she said, though her heart ached at the thought of leaving her family. "I can't live without you, Arjun, and they'll never accept us." "Then I'll come for you tomorrow night," he said, his voice filled with both joy and trepidation. "Pack light. We'll take the midnight train to Mumbai. My cousin there can help us get settled." After hanging up, Aasha sat on her bed, her mind racing. Was she really going to do this? Leave her family, her home, everything she'd ever known. For love, yes, she decided. For love, for Arjun, for a chance at happiness. The next day passed in a blur. Aasha went through the motions of her daily routine, her heart heavy with the knowledge that this would be her last day in her childhood home. She packed a small bag, hiding it under her bed. She wrote a letter to her parents, explaining her decision, asking for their forgiveness, telling them she loved them despite everything. As night fell, she waited anxiously for Arjun's message. At 10 p.m., her phone buzzed. "I'm at the corner." "Are you ready?" Aasha looked around her room one last time, tears welling in her eyes. She picked up her bag and the letter, placing it on her pillow. Then, quietly, she made her way downstairs. As she reached the front door, a voice stopped her. "Where are you going, Aasha?" It was her grandfather, sitting in the shadows of the living room. Aasha froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Dadaji, Her grandfather raised his hand, silencing her. "Sit with me for a moment," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Reluctantly, Aasha set down her bag and sat beside him, acutely aware of Arjun waiting outside, of the minutes ticking by. "You're running away," her grandfather stated. "Not a question, but a fact." Aasha nodded, unable to lie to him. "I have to, Dadaji. They won't let us be together." The old man sighed deeply. "I thought this might happen." He paused, looking at her with eyes that had seen decades of life, of joy and sorrow. "Did I ever tell you what happened after I chose duty over love?" Aasha shook her head, surprised by the question. "I married your grandmother, as was arranged. She was a good woman, kind and dutiful. But there was always something missing." His voice grew distant, lost in memories. "For years I lived with a hole in my heart, wondering about Lakshmi, the woman I had loved. And then, 20 years after our separation, I saw her again." Aasha leaned forward, captivated despite her urgency. What happened? She had married too, had children. Her life had moved on, as had mine. But when our eyes met across that crowded market, I knew that she had never forgotten me, just as I had never forgotten her. He paused, his voice heavy with regret. We spoke briefly, politely, like strangers with a shared secret. And then we parted forever, tears welled in Asha's eyes. "Why are you telling me this, Dadaji?" "Because I want you to understand the weight of the choice you're making," he said, reaching out to take her hand. "If you leave tonight, you leave everything, not just your home, but your history, your identity, your place in the world. And if I stay, I lose Arjun." Aasha finished, her voice breaking. "Yes," her grandfather acknowledged. "But remember this, child. Whatever you choose, there will be loss, there will be pain. The question is, which pain can you bear?" Asha's phone buzzed again, a message from Arjun. "Is everything okay?" Her grandfather saw the conflict on her face. "Go, if you must," he said softly. "I won't stop you, but know that once you walk out that door, the path back may not be open to you." Aasha stood, tears streaming down her face. "I love them, Dadaji. I love mother, father, you. But I also love him. I know, child. I know." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gold chain with a pendant. "This was your grandmother's. Take it wherever you go." Aasha took the chain, clutching it tightly. Then, impulsively, she bent down and touched her grandfather's feet, seeking his blessing. His hand rested briefly on her head, a silent benediction. With a final look at the man who had shown her more understanding than anyone else in her family, Aasha picked up her bag and walked to the door. But as her hand touched the handle, a voice called from the top of the stairs. "Aasha, where are you going?" It was her mother, standing in her nightgown, her face confused and alarmed. In that moment, everything slowed down. Aasha saw her mother's face, saw the love and fear in her eyes. She saw her father's study, where he had taught her to read when she was a little girl. She saw the kitchen where her mother had taught her to make roti, her hands guiding Aasha's smaller ones. She saw the garden where she had played as a child, the temple where they had prayed together as a family. And she saw Arjun, waiting in the dark, his heart full of hope and love for her. Two worlds, two loves, tearing her apart. "Mother, Words failed her. Her mother came down the stairs quickly, her eyes moving from Asha's face to the bag in her hand. Understanding dawning. "You're leaving. With him." Before Aasha could respond, the sound of footsteps announced her father's arrival. He stood at the top of the stairs, taking in the scene before him. "What is happening here?" he demanded, though the tension in the air told him everything he needed to know. Asha's phone buzzed again in her hand. Her father's eyes narrowed at the sound. "Answer it," he said, his voice cold. "Tell him to come inside." Asha's heart raced. Was this a trap? Would her father call the police? But the look in his eyes was not one of deception. It was the hard, unyielding look of a man about to make his final stand. With trembling fingers, Aasha texted Arjun, "My father wants you to come inside." Minutes later, There was a knock at the door. Aasha opened it to find Arjun standing there, his face a mixture of confusion and determination. "Sir," he began, addressing Asha's father, who had now come down the stairs. "Not here," Rajesh cut him off. "In my study." The family followed Rajesh into his study, the tension palpable. Asha's mother stood close to her husband, her face pale. Her grandfather remained in the living room, watching from a distance. Once inside, Rajesh turned to face Arjun. "So, you plan to take my daughter away in the night, like a thief?" Arjun stood his ground, though Aasha could see the fear in his eyes. "Not like a thief, sir. Like a man who loves her and wants to build a life with her." "A life of what?" "Shame. Isolation. Have you thought about what this would mean for her?" Rajesh's voice was rising. "Father, please," Aasha interjected. "No, Aasha, let him answer," her father said sharply. Arjun looked directly at Rajesh. "I know it would be difficult, sir. I know society might not accept us easily, but we would have each other and our love. And in time, perhaps, we would have your blessing too." Rajesh laughed bitterly. "Blessing? You want my blessing for taking my daughter away from her family, her culture, her heritage? I don't want to take her away from anything, sir," Arjun replied, his voice steady despite the hostility directed at him. "I want to add to her life, not subtract from it." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Meera, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Rajesh, perhaps we should listen," she said softly, touching her husband's arm. Rajesh turned to her, surprise evident on his face. "You support this?" "I support our daughter's happiness," Meera said, her eyes moving to Asha's face. "And I see now that she loves this young man." "Love?" Rajesh scoffed. "What does she know of love? She is young, foolish, led by emotions." "As were we once," Meera reminded him gently. "Remember how your father opposed our marriage because my family wasn't as wealthy as he wanted? Remember how we fought for each other?" A flicker of something, memory, recognition, passed over Rajesh's face. He looked at his wife, then at his daughter, then at Arjun. "It's not the same," he said, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. "It's exactly the same," Meera insisted. "Love against tradition, the heart against society." Aasha watched this exchange with growing hope. Could it be that her mother, who had always upheld tradition, was now advocating for her love? But then Rajesh's face hardened again. "No, I cannot allow this. Our family has a position in society. What will people say? They will say that the Kapoors value love and happiness above outdated prejudices," came a voice from the doorway. It was Asha's grandfather, leaning on his cane, his eyes bright with a fire that belied his age. "Father," Rajesh acknowledged, his tone respectful despite his disagreement. "I made a mistake once, son," the old man said, moving into the room. "I chose what society expected over what my heart knew was right. I've regretted it every day since. Don't make your daughter live with the same regret." The room fell silent as the weight of his words settled over them. Aasha looked at her father, trying to read his thoughts in his impassive face. Finally, Rajesh spoke, his voice low and controlled. "Even if I were to consider this, which I am not saying I am, there are practical matters. Where would you live? How would you support yourselves?" It was a small opening, but Arjun seized it eagerly. "I have a job offer from a tech company in Bangalore, sir. It pays well, and they provide housing for employees. We would be comfortable. And what of children? Have you thought about them? About the discrimination they might face?" Rajesh pressed. "Times are changing, sir," Arjun replied. "Perhaps by the time we have children, these divisions will matter less." "A naive view," Rajesh said dismissively. The conversation continued late into the night. Arguments and counter-arguments, emotional appeals and practical considerations. Through it all, Aasha watched her father, looking for any sign of softening, any hint that he might relent. But in the end, Tradition won out. My decision is final, Rajesh said as dawn began to break outside. Aasha will marry Rohit as arranged. This is what is best for her, for our family, for our position in society. Father, please, Aasha begged, tears streaming down her face. Enough, Aasha, he said, his voice weary but firm. It's time for him to leave, and if you choose to go with him, know that you will no longer be welcome in this house. Aasha looked at Arjun, her heart breaking. His eyes reflected her pain, her conflict, her impossible choice. I'll wait for you outside, he said softly. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. And then he was gone, leaving Aasha standing in the middle of her father's study, torn between two loves, two worlds. In the end, she chose family, tradition, duty. 3 months later, Aasha sat in her bridal finery, the weight of gold and expectations heavy upon her. Through the veil, she watched as Rohit performed the wedding rituals, his face solemn and distant. Her family watched with approval, her father's face set with satisfaction, her mother's with resigned acceptance, her grandfather's with quiet sorrow. As the priest chanted the final mantras, Aasha's thoughts drifted to Arjun. Where was he now? Had he moved to Bangalore, started his new life without her? Did he think of her still as she thought of him? The wedding fire blazed before her, its flames consuming the offerings, symbolic of the old life being left behind. And as Rohit reached for her hand to complete the final ritual, Aasha made peace with her choice. She had chosen duty over love, tradition over heart. She would be a good wife to Rohit, a good daughter-in-law to his family. Perhaps in time there might even be a kind of love between them, different from what she had felt for Arjun, but love nonetheless. And yet, as she circled the sacred fire with her new husband, a part of her remained behind, with Arjun, with the love they had shared, with the life they might have had. Unwritten vows, unspoken promises, a love that society had deemed impossible. Some sacrifices are made not for oneself, but for others. Some traditions are upheld not because they are right, but because the cost of breaking them is too high. As Aasha stepped into her new life, she carried with her the memory of a love that had been real, pure and true, a love that society had no place for, but that would live forever in her heart.